I have a couple questions about two of your songs in particular.
Okay.
If you could tell us about Life So Far and We're All Going to Die. I'm just curious, what is the inspiration behind them? Is it autobiographical? What's the deal?
Life So Far is actually, I asked this guy, it came up in conversation. I said, how was the show? How was the show you saw? And he said, it was pretty cool. It was decent, you know.
About your show?
No, it was this other show. It was something that had happened a few days before. And I said, how was it? And he said, it was pretty good. It was pretty cool. It was decent. And that makes me crazy. I hate that.
Yeah.
I like either it was great.
Yeah, of course.
Or it was awful. I really hated it.
Have you ever had someone say that to you? It was awful. I really hated it.
I have had people say they hated what I did, sure, on occasion. But I've had people but I was asking about something else that had happened.
Yeah.
Okay? So I asked this guy, how did you like the show? And he was very lukewarm. It was decent. He said, first thing he said was, it was pretty cool. And he kind of half nodded his head in this really lukewarm way. And it was very non-committal, and I wanted to strangle him.
Yeah.
Because this is the dearest thing to me, music, I love it, and either you love it, or you dislike it intensely, or even I could understand if somebody said, well, it started out with a lot of promise, but it just fizzled. It didn't live up to what I thought it was going to be. Have some involvement in it.
Right.
And so then I started thinking, well, what is life like to this guy? I mean, how must he experience, if that's how he feels about music, and it was a rock and roll concert that we were talking about, right? Which is a really visceral, emotional form of music, right?
Yeah.
It's very basic and very physical even. And if that's how he felt about rock and roll, then how must his life be? It must be very sort of lukewarm.
Blah. Yeah.
So I tried to put myself in the position and that's the point of view that the song is written from.
I love it. I love that song.
Because the guys, thank you.
What was it like touring with Aerosmith? How did it come about?
Well, I've known the guys in Aerosmith for a long time. Steve and Tyler grew up near where I grew up. I grew up in southern Connecticut, and he was from Yonkers, which is right across the New York border.
Okay.
So he would be playing around when I was a teenager and in high school, and first learning to play. He would be playing at different places. I saw him play as a kid, and I ran into him again a few years later in Boston, and just kind of bumped into each other and stayed in touch. And a lot of times when Aerosmith started to hit, he used to call up and say, "Hey Dave, you want to open up a couple of shows for me?" And he'd put my band on opening for Aerosmith, on a tour through the South or a couple of nights at the Garden. So it was always, and it's great fun. It's a lot. Playing with Aerosmith is kind of like, it's like being in a major motion picture, a big budget movie about the circus, right? It's like, the guy over here is going to shoot himself out of a cannon any minute.
Right.
The guy over here is playing something that sounds a lot like acrobatics, and Steven is the ringmaster of the whole thing. And there are tons of bells and whistles and lights and sound and fury signifying everything, and it's a very exhilarating feeling to play with that band.
And like tens of thousands of people in the audience.
Yeah, they're big crowds mostly, but they play with a lot of conviction, and as individuals and as a unit, they play like themselves. Yeah, there's nobody else that can make that sound.
Good point. Kind of going back to what we were just saying.
Yeah,
finding yourself.
And I think that comes from all of them individually, and you put it, great rock bands are built on chemistry between individuals, and Aerosmith is a perfect example of that. Yeah, I had some really serious role models for that. One guy was James Jamerson. He's the guy that played on all the Motown records, right? The 60s and 70s. He wrote the book. But a lot of times they would come into the sessions with just a chord chart. The producer would come in, here's the song. It's, C, F, E, A, D minor, G, C, and it would be a chord chart. Yeah. And he would say to the band, okay, you guys work up an arrangement, Right. And so Jamerson would play,
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So right away, before anybody even starts to sing, it already sounds like a hit record.
So groovy, absolutely.
So, yeah, sometimes I write on the bass. But usually I can't finish it on the bass because you need harmonic background. You need the tension that you get from chords moving, you know,
Right.
to make for dramatic events.